Steve Jewin, MMA Mania.
All right, Steve, you're on with Mike. Go ahead.
All right, Mike Shipman, how are you doing today, sir?
I'm very good, Steve. How are you?
I'm excellent. Thank you for taking the time to talk to us today. And I'm going to start out with the fact that, honestly, I can't find any contradiction to the only people I can think of who started their career with a loss and won the next 13 fights in a row are you and Chris Cyborg. What do you think of that fact?
I mean, considering what she's done, the career she's had and is having in MMA, but yeah, I'm happy to have that comparison. That's I didn't know that before, but yeah, that's good company to be in.
What do you attribute that level of success to, that you were able to come back from that and go on such a monumental streak afterward?
Well, yeah, that's as much credit as I take for that. I've got to give that to my team as well, London Street Fighters, for getting me back out there, getting me the tools to get back out there and do the job, and also for taking lessons from that loss about how I approach that fight, and learning from it instead of just trying to act like it didn't happen or forget about it. I embraced that loss, and I learned a lot from it.
Well, clearly you did, because you've been on a roll ever since then, and you've been on a roll since you joined Bellator too. How do you feel about your position in Bellator right now, being featured on this main card coming up here in Thackerville?
Yeah, I feel great. I mean, I think it's the right time. For me, it feels like it's the right time for this now. I mean, I've got a tough opponent, and I'm featured on the main card. So I think now is the time to show what I'm made of against tougher opposition and in a bigger spotlight.
You're right, he is tough opposition. Hracho Darpinyan went to a draw with UFC and Bellator veteran Gerald Harris, so you know that that's a skilled fighter if he can fight somebody like that to a standstill.
Yeah, that's the thing. He's not just a skilled fighter. I mean, I think the Hracho Darpinyan we saw in his last fight is the best we've seen. I think he's the best he's ever been. So I'm expecting him to be even better for my fight. And he's not just skilled. He's there to fight as well. You can see he throws bombs. He's a dangerous guy. So I think it makes for an entertaining fight. It should be action packed.
You know, I would say you're a dangerous guy, too, when I would describe you to other people, because 8 wins by knockout, 5 wins by submission, and most of your fights end in the first round.
Yeah, that's right. So it's been all stoppages, which I think is the longest current finishing streak, the longest active one at least, in MMA today. I definitely see myself as a finisher. I'm not looking to go for a decision. Obviously, I'm always fit for 3 rounds. I've had 2 finishes in the 3rd round, so I still carry my power late into the fight. But yeah, I look to get the job done quickly.
Yeah, and let me tell you, that's something that's fun for me as a reporter who covers every fight on a card from the preliminary to the main event, because when I see the name Mike Shipman on a preliminary card, I'm like, oh good, this is going to be a fun fight to watch.
I appreciate that, man. That's exactly what I'm going for. If my peers and other people in the industry are enjoying my fights, then I'm doing something right. So I appreciate that.
No problem. After this fight with Hracho Darpinyan, assuming the streak continues and things go your way, who do you see as next for you in this division?
There's been a lot of talk from an individual called Fabian Edwards. He's been saying a lot of derogatory things about me, saying I've been avoiding a fight with him, which is bizarre. Like he's 6-0 now, and he's becoming a legitimate prospect. But I haven't been avoiding anything. He's only just turned up on the scene. Like, but yeah, he's been chirping at me for quite a while. So I would like to get that done sooner rather than later. But I understand if Bellator wants to build it into a bit more of a rivalry. I'd like to fight in London. I think there's a London card coming up in the summer. I don't know if he'll be available for that, but if he is, then that would definitely be something I'd look at.
Do you prefer to have fights in Europe, or do you mind the travel to America for this one?
It's part of the appeal is part of the appeal. Like as you're getting into fighting, is the idea of getting to travel around to exotic places and get paid to beat people up like that. That is part of the allure of fighting for me at least. Having said that, I do enjoy fighting in front of a home crowd, and just as much for convenience sake as anything. Like we've been in Wembley a couple of times. That's literally a stone's throw from where I live, so I can get to Wembley really easily. But in terms of like the kind of the event and the kind of adding a bit of excitement to it, I do also enjoy fighting abroad. So it's not really I don't really have a preference right now. In terms of convenience, I like fighting close to home. Obviously, it's a bit easier with travel and everything. But at the same time, I like seeing new places, and it gives me a little excuse to have a little holiday afterwards.
All right, well, that takes me back to Fabian Edwards then. Do you think maybe he's calling you out thinking, oh, that'd be a great fight for me because neither one of us have to travel. We could do that right here at home.
Yeah, well, maybe that's part of it. Because he does seem to be going after, he does seem to be saying a lot of, like, he's going after, like, regional fighters, which I find strange. Like, he's saying a lot of, the names he is saying are English names. He's had Chadwick, he wants to fight me. So maybe that's it. Maybe he doesn't want to travel, or I don't know. Or I'm not sure what his motivation is, but that's not really my concern. Is worrying about what he's worrying about. But he's saying one too many times. It's like Candyman. He's going to turn up sooner or later.
Seems that way. But speaking of motivations, what are your motivations as a fighter? Do you want to become a world champion? Do you want to remain on this streak? What are you looking for?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to be a world champion, but my kind of general philosophy is not to look too far ahead down the road. Kind of deal with the problem in front of you. I find if you're looking at goals too far ahead, then you become inflexible. You're trying to make reality fit your expectations, which isn't always the way. I think you've got to stay flexible and take the opportunities that are in front of you. And so far, it's been working great. My motivation from day one getting into fighting was to be able to just fight, be able to support myself fighting, which is an amazing thing to be able to do. Just do what you love and get paid for it, and also to fight the big names, like fighters who I respect and who I appreciate their style, like the Musasis and people I've come up watching. Like I love to have those kinds of fights. And now I feel like I've put the work in now that I'm getting to that place where I can start calling for those big names. A couple more wins, and I can start calling for those names. More than a belt or anything like that is I'd like to. There's names that I'd like to fight. Obviously, I'd love to be a world champion, absolutely. But I'd like to be able to look back on my career and see some great fights.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned Mousasi because that's a name I had in mind, not just because he's the champion, but because I think stylistically, the way he fights, you and him would have a very entertaining match.
Yeah, I mean, as far as in my opinion, I'd say he's the best middleweight in the world. Obviously, on any given day, so anyone could beat anyone, but in terms of how well-rounded he is, just how he's just competent, absolutely competent everywhere. Just always makes the right decision. So maybe after another year and a half or so of development, and I get myself to my peak, I would absolutely love to test myself against him. I think I've got a couple of fights that I have first. Hracho Darpinyan is a great step up to start with. Maybe another fight after that, and then I'd actually love to see where I am, how I'd stack up against the Musashis of the world, because he is someone who I respect a great deal and would love to measure myself against.
What did you think of Rory McDonald's attempt to go up and challenge him? Do you think that was a poor decision on his part, or do you think that it was just Mousasi outclassing him in every way?
You can say anything's a poor decision in hindsight, obviously, but you got to respect the endeavour to go up and challenge such a such a high level guy, the weight above you. I kind of called it going because they are both so well rounded, but Musashi's he's just bigger and stronger as well. It's like the odds are always going to be for Musashi, I feel like. But you can't fault Roy McDonald for trying, like for daring, because otherwise he's in the wrong business. I respect the endeavor, I respect the attempt, but I think Musashi's too big and just too well rounded. So there wasn't really much of a way that I could see Roy McDonald winning that fight.
No, and you're right. Mousasi, besides just being too well-rounded, is definitely too big for him, because this is a guy who cuts all the way down to middleweight, who's fought at light heavyweight, and by his own admission in interviews, could easily finish his career fighting heavyweight.
And that Musashi said that, dude. He could finish his career at heavyweight.
Yeah, he did in a previous interview. He's like, I don't like cutting anymore.
Yo, fair enough, man. I mean, when you're having that much success, you've been in it for so long. Like that, I guess when you've been in it for so many years, the one big ball ache of this game is the cutting weight. So I can sympathise that when you've done it, I don't know how many times you fought middleweight, but it must be like 30 odd times. When you've done it 30 odd times, I can see you have enough of it. I don't think his frame is a true heavyweight frame, but I think he's a great sized middleweight. He is a real middleweight, but with his skill set, obviously he could do well in any division. But personally, I hope he stays at middleweight, and I hope he stays there a little bit longer, because I'd like to obviously, like as I said, I'd like the opportunity one day when I'm ready, not too far away. I'd love the opportunity to fight him.
I would love to see that too, so let's hope he stays there for the foreseeable future. But just a couple more questions, Mike, before I let you go. I want to know, what was your life like before you got into mixed martial arts? Was there anything that pulled you in that direction to be a fighter?
To be honest, it was a little bit aimless. I've always been, just since a child, I've always been drawn to combat sports and fighting and training. But my parents weren't really too into it. So they let me take up judo when I was 10, and finally let me take up boxing when I was 14. But by then I'd already been playing rugby for quite a few years, so which was more kind of acceptable. So I played rugby for until I was about 18 or 19, and then as soon as I left home, pretty much I was drawn back to mixed martial arts. Not so much a conscious choice. I just think it was just something that was always going to happen. I always kind of knew I was going to wind up doing it. I just think it's in me to want to fight.
I almost think if rugby was your passion back then, you were definitely bound for MMA, because that is a very physically demanding sport and a lot of injuries and a lot of recovery from injuries. So you know about how to get back into fighting shape if you played rugby.
Yeah, that's right. There are a few attributes you pick up from rugby, just the general kind of toughness and learning to enjoy contact. And although it's not technically exactly the same, you build up a similar kind of power required for a driving double, and just generally being explosive. There are some kind of crossover benefits from the rugby. But yeah, I think the things I always enjoyed about rugby were the violent bits. All the technical aspects of the game I was less interested with. Whereas with MMA, every single aspect of the game is fascinating to me. Like whether I need to improve in it, whether it's a strength of mine or not, I find it all fascinating. I can watch it. I can watch it all day. With rugby, I just enjoy just getting on there and smashing a few people, but it didn't consume me in the same way.
Well, I was never much of an athlete myself in my younger days, but that was the one thing I enjoyed about playing roller hockey, was the physical contact, was getting to slam into somebody. Sometimes it's just fun to go out there and throw yourself around.
Yeah, that's a crazy sport, though, by the way. Roller hockey and ice hockey, that's skating around with no grip on a rock hard surface. I think that's an odd thing to get into. But again, you've got to respect it. I think there is something in everyone that we live in such like a civilized time, but evolutionarily we haven't caught up. There's still that little part in all of us, I think, that wants to go out and smash into something. So I think those kinds of sports are a great outlet and a great focus for it. To go back to what you said earlier, as to what I was doing in my life before, to be honest, I don't really know. I was kind of a bit I was a bit aimless, a bit lost, and this gave me a real focus and gave me something that I actually could work hard at, which was, again, like, my parents weren't crazy about it to start with, and my family wasn't nuts about it to start with. When they could see how hard I was actually working and how much I enjoyed it, then everyone got on board, and I'm very proud of what I do now.
Well, the hard work has definitely paid off because you've continued to find success in Bama, in Bellator, anywhere that you've competed. So we really look forward to seeing this next fight you have with Hracho Darpinyan. And in closing, your thoughts on Hracho and the fight and any plugs that you'd like to give.
Yeah, he's a very tough guy. He's dangerous on the feet, and he's got wins by submission as well. He brings the action, and I do as well. So I think we're going to have an exciting fight for the fans. Having said that, I think I match up well to him. I don't see an area where he is better than me at. So wherever this goes, I feel confident I can finish this fight.
We look forward to
as
seeing
for
that.
plugs, I just gotta, as always, just thank my team, London Shoot Fighters, and the guys there. I won't name them all, but there's Javid and Farad Basharat, upcoming fighters, great teammates. Felix Klinkhammer. Obviously, there's the guy signed to Bellator. There's Michael Page, Norbert, Naveni, Alfie Davis, Jimmy Warhead. All great guys. Arudis, Andrew Vickers, just all great guys. A really great atmosphere at London Shoot Fighters.
Absolutely. I think it's one of the most underrated teams out there right now because between you and Michael Venom Page, it's two of the top fighters in Bellator and in one place at one time. So people need to be watching for that team, and they definitely need to watch you at Bellator 218. Mike, thank you for the time today.
Nice one. Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
No problem.